Okay, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Water Dowsers Mastermind Conference Call. This is Sherry Hope, and calling in from California here, and I see we've got some callers from all over the United States here. Great. Good to see you here. So just to let you know that this conference call is being recorded. All of the people who are on the call, except for the host and the guest speaker, are muted so that we have a nice recording with not a lot of noise. If we have time at the end of the call, we will unmute you so that you can ask a question or just follow the directions at the end here. So the call lasts for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes. And this evening we have Ginette Matacia Lucas. So some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with her. And we've got a few announcements here before we start. So Susan Spooler, are you on the line? Okay, so I know Susan has an announcement about the West Coast Conference, so when she gets on the line, we'll have her talk about it. Susan, are you on? Okay, I know she's got some issues right now, so I think her uncle just passed away, so she may not be on right away. Okay, we're just waiting here. Okay, Susan, you can go ahead and make your announcement.
Okay. Hi, this is Susan McNeil Spooler. We just wanted to let everyone know that the West Coast Dowser Conference is July 3rd to the 7th, 2020. In Santa Cruz, California at Stevenson College. The website is www.dowserswestcoast.org. That's DOWSERSWESTCOAST.org. We're updating it daily if you're not seeing the information, but just know that we're up and running, and all the speakers have been notified. And our keynote speaker is Maria Wheatley, and she's coming in from London. So we have quite a cast of characters and excellent lectures that we'll be having at the West Coast Dowser Conference, including Sharon Hope. And we'll be having the youth program as well. We're resurrecting the youth program, too. So, anyways, thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for the announcement. Okay.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Okay, great. So, again, I'm going to let everybody know again that this conference call is being recorded and that it is available within a few days on dowsers.org, the ASD website. So as long as you're a member, you may go on and access all of the recorded conference calls for the past 3 years. Basically, that's how long we've been doing this. And it's been a lot of fun, and we appreciate everybody who's come on the call to just give out all the information, stories about dowsing that they have. It's been a lot of fun. And, of course, tonight we've got Ginette Matacia Lucas. I get that turned around sometimes. Sorry. So I'm going to introduce Ed Stillman right now. And Ed Stillman is a longtime dowser, longtime water dowser, and has run the school for dowsing at the West Coast Conference and other conferences. So I'm going to turn this over to you, Ed, so you can introduce Ginny.
Good. Thank you. All right, what I'm going to do now is go ahead and make an introduction to Ginette, and I'm going to start right now. Well, it is my pleasure to introduce our featured guest speaker today, Ginette Matacia Lucas. Ginette is a trained dowser with psychic abilities. Today, Ginette will be talking to us about her experiences dowsing for water wells, for residential and commercial properties and farms. In addition, she will be discussing her dowsing to find missing people, treasure, missing items, stolen goods, underground tunnels, gold mines, and oil and gas deposits. That's a wonderful amount of goodies we're going to have. Ginette also works on UFO abduction cases and ghost investigations. Ginette, my friend, please begin by telling us first how you got started in dowsing.
Hi, everyone. So I basically got started in about 1963. My father, as a lot of people know, is Louis Matacia, and he is not only a water dowser, but used the same method for the military, and he was called the military dowser. Later in years, a couple years later, I guess in 1965, 66, he, I guess it was 1965, he met with the military in our backyard. And when I say military, general staff, some of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, some federal authorities, and some people from Senate staffers. And they came to the house to see a demonstration on dowsing. And it wasn't just for water. It was more showing water as an example to parallel it to military dowsing. So when my father was showing the men how to use the L-rod, a lot of people use the fork and stick, but so then the next step would be the L-rods, and then the next step would be the pendulum. So I believe he also had the Cameron ore meter there too, which is a little shocking because it's right in your face and it moves so quickly that people it's hard to comprehend that, wow, this is really happening. So the men were looking at all these pieces of equipment and just couldn't fathom it. So my dad called my brother and asked my brother to come out and show him how to use the L-rods and that kind of thing. And I was looking through the big window in the backyard, and I thought, why does my brother get called out here? Why can't I get called out here? Even though I'm a girl, let me go see if I can help. My brother used the L-rods, and he showed where the creek crossed the earth. So a lot of people, when they go out in the woods and they want to, we lived on like 5 acres in Falls Church, Virginia, right down the street from the Pentagon. And when you walk across the yard and you hit a creek bed, our L-rods went left and right, okay? So in other words, when we walked and hit the creek bed, my right one would turn to the right, my left one would turn to my left. Well, that happened with my brother, and then I said, well, that's sort of stupid and boring. Why don't you show where the creek bed is going as a tracking method, like Indians do? And so I showed them, okay, so if this is where it's going, you could actually take one L-rod, and it would go left, right, and you could follow the track of the water flow. And then I said, show me if it's heavier, and then I would say, show me how wide and how deep and so forth. And then we realized that, you know, after a few minutes, we realized we had a creek in the backyard, which we didn't even know existed. So I think that really gave them a general idea my brother was in 6th grade, and I think I was 7. And we gave him an idea of these are the opportunities that the dowsing rod can give you, whether it's a fork and stick or not. And I do believe the fork and stick was there. Some people swear by the a certain tree stick that you have to use that to find water. But I don't think that's true. You can pretty much use anything you want. It depends on what you're comfortable with. So anyway, my father got real popular because of his military dowsing. And after 7, I had a near-death experience. And it sort of opened up the world of the paranormal to me. And they said my whole life was going to change at 27. And at 27, I had another near-death experience. And I was told that I was going to be doing psychic work. which when I was 7, I didn't recognize the fact of what the paranormal was. I mean, I was told certain things and so forth, but what was interesting is that I was told to combine it all, so dowsing, psychic, and so forth. So I use my abilities to pinpoint mysteries or secrets and solve them. And I have a very high accuracy rate, not because my dad is a dowser. It certainly helps. But I tell everybody, please network, please team up with other people. Some people are really, really good, and some people need to get better. You don't have to chase this, I'm special. You have to chase what's your goal and what's your project you want to work on. I mean, this last week I got 2-3 calls on treasure hunting, which is a blast. And I tell women, get your tush in there because it is a very active hobby, and you can find money, diamonds, jewelry. You can find antique car parts. I mean, some things you can sell and actually make really good money. I had a client who found a coin, and it turned out to be worth $90,000. I just had another client whose coin turned out to be worth $30,000. And he was a tag-along, team member to the group that went along to find the coin. When they found the coin, he unexpectedly got a check for $3,000 in the mail to say, thank you for helping me find my coin. When you go out treasure hunting, which is also dowsing, it's better to go out in a group because it's safer. Snakes, scorpions, etc. For those of you who are in California, I guess you have lots of wild animals. And it's also good because you have to have the shovel. You have to have the right equipment. And sometimes you have to break it down from the L-rod over to the pendulum. I do a lot of map dowsing first with my treasure hunting. And I tell a lot of people, and tonight I'm going to give you a couple of my secrets of not just treasure hunting, but I'm going to give you secrets of, for example, I'm working with a couple of guys right now because I'm writing a book. And so far didn't find anything for them yet. We have had one client we didn't find anything for, but so you can't be perfect every time, but you do want to perform perfect every time for all your clients. I do psych out the clients, and I do douse out the clients to see if they are going to find treasure. I do believe both of my clients are going to find items, which is really exciting. The key thing about treasure hunting, for example, and we'll cover each and every little topic quickly so nobody gets bored. On treasure hunting, it's very similar to using a canine. When you have a canine going out for a missing person or drug, the dog will do 3 things. A, he'll keep going on a certain track, and then sometimes they go in a circle, just like your pendulum, and then it will sit down on its tush. And when it sits down its tush, it means you found what you're looking for. Or they'll take their paw, the third signal, and put it on top of the table or put it at the location where the area needs to be searched. The reason I bring this up is that a lot of people don't recognize the fact that their body is telling them something at the same time. For example, I was working on my 2 clients, one in Europe and one, I think, in Arizona. And I kept dowsing certain locations, and they were getting nothing. And I kept thinking, wow, that's really weird. So 2 or 3 things happened. A, while you're dowsing, you can actually sense or smell unusual odors. And I need you to pay attention to that when you're dowsing. And you write down what kind of odor. And if the odor is bad, it could mean A, danger, B, a missing person, C, something else. I'm going to laugh it off and say Bigfoot, but that's, it could actually be a wild animal. So what happened with another treasure I found, I kept getting painful teeth reactions, which is called deviceless body dowsing. And I also received pinpricks in my fingers, and I received, I almost felt like my thumb or fingers got hit with lightning. Now, on these other 2 treasure hunters, what I do is I meditate and tell myself, show me about the client. And what I did was I take their information, put it on the table. So let's call one Hans, which is not the name, but the client's name. But we'll use that name as a typical name. So he's a European. put his name on the table, take my fingers, rub my fingers on top of his name and where he's from, and I say, show me the third or fourth connection to this client so I can find treasure for him. And oddly enough, I used to get, as I mentioned, reactions in my teeth, and instead of reactions in my teeth for him, my whole body heated up. So I just wanted to share with people, each and every time you work with a different client, test out your bodily reactions to that client. And I was really excited because I started working on the project again, and I noticed that I started getting heat sensations, and I started getting visions or either sleeping and dreaming that this guy was going to find some stuff. So I know I'm giving myself a year to find him some goodies, but the good thing is he's going to find something. And when people call me and say, oh, hey, can you find me this or find me that, I tell them, let's take a look at your project. So I'll start, if I think it's a 50-50, I'll charge him a small fee to figure it out. I just had a guy call the other day, and I didn't charge him anything. And he wanted to find a missing ring that was left at a movie theater. And I said, I saw black colors, and I said, you know what, this is a shut door. It's gone. It's over. It's not going to happen. So I didn't charge him anything because I really felt like the sad news was just tough to bear. And it turns out that it was his former wife who had passed ring, and his daughter had left it at a movie theater. And then I get the bad news. It was 3 years ago. So I tell people, don't wait on getting a dowser. Don't wait on trying to get a solution, because 3 years is the ring is going to be passed on and passed on and passed on. And I'm going to share a bunch of different casework with you tonight. So back to Hans and the heat in my body. I was also taking Hans and laying his case on the table. I took my Arizona case, laid it on the table. We'll call him Chris. His name is not Chris. We put his picture and his name and information on the table and the details. And what was really interesting is I got heat and a funny feeling in my back, which I thought, well, that's interesting. And then I set it down, and then that night I was watching a TV show on Hitler's gold or treasure, and I got huge reactions in my teeth. And what was interesting was it was Hitler's gold, and they were showing the gold and so forth. So apparently gold affects my teeth, so you have to think what's going to affect you. It doesn't have to be your teeth. It could be your finger. When I predict earthquakes, I get headaches. A friend of mine and one of my students, his legs get very, very uncomfortable, get very painful. He says it feels like they're swollen, but they're not swollen. So I like to share with people, pay attention to not just your dowsing, but your mental situation and your bodily reaction, because you'd be surprised. Your accuracy rate will increase, and you'll say, oh, my gosh, there is something here. So, for example, I helped a team of treasure hunters in Chicago find some Al Capone treasure in Illinois. And when I did that particular case, the entire time my fingers kept burning every time I got to a certain map or location. And then we narrowed it down finally to 10 by 10 and a certain footage from the road. And they used a ground-penetrating radar. I guess they call it GPR, whatever. And it was like a lawnmower. Now, here's the interesting thing about treasure hunting is you can't always see it, so don't expect and dowsing does that. You get real surprises every time you turn around. When they took the ground-penetrating radar, the machine reacted to a certain area in the 10 by 10. So they started digging, and they called me and said, on this particular case, which my teeth were going crazy, and I was getting, and I call it, again, deviceless body dowsing, my fingers were getting pinpricks. And they dug, and they found the hood of a car. And I said, the hood of a car? What year is it? And they said, well, Ginette, it's just a hood of a car. Who cares? And I insisted on finding out the year, and they said it was about 1930. And the year we were doing this was like 1998 or something, 1996 or something. I'm trying to think, something like that, 1994 to 1998. I mean, I have the conference information from when I was there. But what was interesting was, think about it, Capone was in Chicago in the 1930s. And so I said to them, you need to dig up the hood to use the ground penetrating radar again and see if you get another reaction, because my teeth kept going crazy, almost like a metal detector. And they dug up the hood, they dug 2 more feet in that general area, and they found over 60 bars of stolen silver from the federal government. The bars were both Al Capone's and Ray Nitty, R-A-Y, Ray Nitty, N-I-T-T-Y, who was Al Capone's right-hand man. Now, the reason I tell you this casework is that some cases will teach you how to not fail, and some casework will teach you that you're failing. And that's very important because, for example, if I had a client who called me and paid me, I want to deliver for them. My goal is to always be successful for my clients. So back at the ranch, I have to start all over again with the Arizona guy and Hans in Europe, and I have to say, oh my gosh, you're all heat related. So now every time I go dowsing, and if I don't get the heat, and I get the dowsing pendulum to say, yes, there's something here, it could be the heat and the time frame of the product we're looking for. For example, let's say we're looking for something Roman, which we're not. Then my body would say, okay, I'm getting the cold chills. And if I'm looking for something from Hitler, and I say, oh, I get my teeth reacting. So each and every little detail from the deviceless body dowsing can imply an era, or it can imply gold or silver or a time frame. So I tell people when you're dowsing, you really need to write down the who, what, when, where, how. So let's say I'm working for Hans, and I write down who, so his name is Hans, where, I say Europe. I get very specific, by the way. When, I have to say the era of what time frame I'm looking for. So let's say it was the Roman time frame. I have to write down the Roman time frame. How we can say we're dowsing it out, we're treasure hunting, but you can't just say treasure hunting. You have to write down, we're looking for gold, we're looking for coins. You have to be very specific. You have to write down, we're looking for Bibles, we're looking for, I'm trying to think of all these little things you're looking for. We're looking for remains or skeletal remains. And you just keep labeling it, and that's a part of your list. You can call it the bucket list, wish list, whatever you want. And then, so again, you have the who, what, when, where, how, and you douse all this out, and then your next sheet of paper will hopefully be your map of where you're going. And you can have a map from the area you're hunting, or you can have a map from today's era, Google Earth, and you can douse out both and see if they're on the same GPS. And what you can do now, I just had a class today on how to GPS for myself, because it's very frustrating, how to pinpoint and GPS the location for my client, where to go dig. Because if you say, oh, do like a 10-foot radius, you save them a lot of time and effort. A lot of these people are renting equipment, and it can be very costly. So you really want to narrow down the window. Now, I just want to address something else to people. I recently have been very, very ill, and I came down with pneumonia, and I just found out some of my drugs, some of the meds, were screwing up my parathyroid, and maybe that's why I've been off. So I want to tell people, if you're sick, you may want to take a break, and it may not be the sickness, it may be the med. So please pay attention to that. And I also tell people, if you're going to go dowsing, you have to drink at least 8 to 16 ounces of water before you treasure hunt, before you do any kind of dowsing, because it makes you a better dowser, or it makes you a better psychic, or it makes you a better intuitive, or gives you higher sensitivity. I find that some people, they like to drink a glass of wine or a beer before they douse. I don't recommend it, because you may go in the wrong direction, and if you're hunting for something, why waste your time? So let's go back to a case-by-case scenario, So that was one of my treasure hunting stories, and I just wanted people to know that dowsing offers so many fun opportunities for everybody, and you can make money on that one, which is a blast. Just unfortunately, sometimes before you dig, get permission. Before you go on the property, get permission, and make sure you're with people for safety. So let's move. Ed, is that good enough? And we're going to move to water dowsing, and I'm going to give a couple pointers on water dowsing.
It certainly is. Go right ahead on the water dowsing.
Okay, so I'm going to laugh about water dowsing because I personally find it very easy. But I'm going to tell you a couple of tricks that I always found that were easy for me. Is when I go to a property, I like to map out the property first. And so in other words, I get the map at my house first. I charge the same as the guys, but the guys get more jobs than I do because I'm a female. And it's hilarious. It's really interesting because I get the map in the mail, I pinpoint it, and I do 3 wells for the client for the same price as the guys doing 1 well for the client. And if they need me to go there, that's an additional fee. And what I do is I try to get topo maps or property maps, and I try to find the hills, HILLS, or the little mounds involved, because typically mounds create a higher pressure point of water. So if you have 30 acres and they're mounds or a little bit of mountainous stuff, you're gonna find faster water, higher water flow. And so that's why I pinpoint 3. The other thing is you have to make sure your driller can get to the site. So you have to be real careful where you pinpoint where your well is, because there's no way in heck you're going to be able to do it on a cliff. Sometimes it's just not realistic. Additionally, I've been having some bad news about clients. They get calls and they call me and say, hey, I just got charged $40,000 for a water well. We have a dry well. And then when it comes time to pay me, they don't want to pay me. And, oh, but you're a $50 an hour type person. And I make sure people know right up front, know your worth. You're a water dowser. You're valuable. And if you found water wells, put together a notebook, track yourself, know your abilities, and know that you can do this. If you've done it once, you can do it again. It's a lot of fun. And people will respect you if you do charge them. If you charge too little, they'll come back and each and every time take advantage of your time more and more. A second thing about water dowsing, not only do I find 3 water wells, you have to find the depth, the width, and I have a chart. If anybody wants to donate $10 and get a chart from me about how much water flow per person in the house and all that, I have the chart from Lewis. You do have to have a certain amount of water per person according to county code or federal code and that kind of thing. A lot of people think, oh, I'm just going to find water. Well, that's great, but you really do need to have a certain kind of water flow. Another thing, too, is when I'm out hunting, I want the dowsers to learn about a new term. It's called synesthesia, Synesthia. Synesthia. Thesnia. I lied. Synesthesia. Synesth. Let's see, I have to figure this out. I'm not writing it. Let's see. Synesthesia. Well, look it up, folks, and learn about yourself, because if you have synesthesia, you're going to be a better psychic or dowser. And what is it? Okay, so let's say you're dowsing and you see the color blue or the color red or the color green, or you see the letter L or any alphabet or any number involved with your color. Additionally, there are about 80 synesthesia characteristics in a person. And some people have all 80, very rare, but some people have just a few. And I bet you $50 the dowsers have a ton of synesthesia, because they're just so capable of locating missing persons, missing objects, water wells, and so forth. They just aren't focusing or refocusing. So I think it's really important that you look at your opportunities. Psychology Today wrote an article about my synesthesia, and when I did the Al Capone treasure, I saw colors and that kind of thing, and that helped me realize or recognize not only do I have deviceless body dowsing, but I also get colors and numbers. And I bet some of you out there that are listening get the same thing, you just didn't recognize it. Or you thought maybe something's wrong with my eyesight. Or your eyesight, should I say. When I jump in the shower and if I see the color green, I know that I'm going to get a client that is going to spend a lot more money on me to get their project done. For some reason, when you relax and you get in the shower, you see a lot more colors, you see a lot more perceptions, you can feel a lot more perceptions, and you think to yourself, am I crazy? But get a notebook, write down all your details about yourself, get to know yourself as a dowser and your body as a dowser. Another thing about water wells, when a lot of people don't have to have a well that is like 400 feet deep. That's ridiculous because the driller is going to charge them per foot, to go down. And the drillers can also block the well, which is unfortunate. But I have been seeing some really, I don't want to use the word scam because I don't want to be libelous about the drillers, but you do have to be very careful who you refer as a driller or help them check out their background with the Better Business Bureau. Regarding dowsing a water well, the other thing I do is I've noticed you can also, the more expert dowsers, like my father and a few others, and like Fred McIntosh, who was alive years ago, they would use a piece of rebarb and they would use they would put a pretend dial around the water well. You can call it a diagram if you want or a template. And when they put it around the water well, they would have 0 on 0 degrees, and then they would douse out 0 to 360 and say, okay, so at 330, I want you to put a rebarb in right here, and it would knock the water back into the water well. And that sounds really goofy, and I've told clients about it, and they just don't want to hear it because they said it sounds too hokey-pokey, but it really does work. And I'm proud to say I've seen it work, and I've been impressed by it. What happens is when the drillers go down, they put their pipe down too fast, and they block the creek bed for coming in with all the water or the river. And so when you knock the rebarb in it alters. It's like a small earthquake, and it alters the water, and it breaks the wall that the drillers created. All right, so that's a few tidbits. I'm trying to think what else we were going to talk about regarding missing persons. Tonight, I guess, right now, I'm going to work on a couple cases. Tomorrow, actually, and I want to throw both cases at you just for fun. One case is Scott Madden out of Nevada, and on that particular case, I combined dowsing in my dreams, and I combined using dowsing to pinpoint the remains of Scott Madden because we believe he's a homicide victim. And what was interesting is the first time I actually picked up on Scott Madden missing out of Reno, I actually picked up he was in the water. So what I'm saying is when you do missing persons, show me if he's in the water or show me if he's on land. And then if he's in the water, you ask for depth and so forth, and the landmarks around where the body is located. On land, you can say, show me if he's near a fire pit, show me if he is buried, and then you start asking for 5 landmarks around the body so that you can find the missing person. A lot of people ask me, how did I get lucky enough to meet police and work with the police? I was just very, very fortunate. I dealt with bad police. I dealt with good police. I dealt with welcoming police. I dealt with cops that were rude. I dealt with federal agents that cursed at me because I was right on the money, and they just thought, who the heck are you? And so if you want to do the police work, you really have to bite your tongue. You have to filter because you really want to tell them to piss off because there are times when they're not always comfortable with you being there as a I guess I would say as a guide or an aid to help them find the missing person. They're stumped, so the only reason you would come in as a dowser or dowser/psychic or intuitive is because I don't want to say they're desperate, they just want to get it over with and do a case closure. On dowsing a missing person, I typically tell people start from where the person was missing and get the person's home address. Combine the two and combine all your psychic talents, because you have to use your dream state with your dowsing, and your success ratio will increase. And maybe another time we can talk about dowsing in dreams. I do what's called incubating dreams, and I try to talk to the other side. A lot of dowsers understand this, so it sounds hokey, but it's very accurate. When I talk to the other side and say, show me where this missing object is, or show me where you're located, I don't just say, show me where you're located, show me the name of the town, show me a street address. A lot of people don't know I was the dowser who did the Kaylee Anthony case in Florida, and a lot of people were shocked, and I was like, oh, this is silly. I'm a dowser. All dowsers know you can do this. You do it from a remote location, and I did it from Richmond, Virginia, all the way to Florida. I wasn't given any maps, and the only thing I had that was mailed to me was the poster. I gave the volunteers the information. They didn't follow up. So a few months later, I said, listen, just give me something of the kids, and I was sent a teddy bear, and I used that as what I call the triangle. And it means from the child to the site to me. And then I picked up the information. It was identical what I got in June. And I tell people, this is silly. She's right here. I told you where she was originally, and you need to go look. And they didn't look, so I had to make a phone call to the media. I actually called the media versus the police, and told them where I thought the missing girl was, and that the PI was over there, and he wasn't informing anyone that there was a remains there. So it sort of blew up in the press even more. I had wished that I used the word dowser frequently on the Kaylee Anthony case, but they didn't cover it too much. So unfortunately, they were calling me a psychic. But I used dowsing to find the little girl, and dowsing can surprise yourself when finding a missing person. And on that particular one, as I mentioned, I used a combination of my dowsing and my dream work, and I was actually given the word suburban, and I told the volunteers when they went searching, go to suburban, and I didn't know it till a month later, but the little baby's remains were found on Suburban Street. It's tough doing crime work. Recently, I offered a family to help them find their relative because it was an older woman. I felt really bad for her, and she just vanished. And so that's a project I'm doing tomorrow. And I have my little, what I call dream team, a bunch of dowsers that we get together and we try to find missing people. And once I pinpoint it, I tell the volunteers that are going to go look for the missing lady, and hopefully they'll find her. But I get my dream team to do the same thing, to douse and see what they're getting. And I find that the team together actually, it helps each other. We help each other. I mean, I can work on a case and be 20 feet away, because I worked with a dowser out of Ohio. I was 20 feet away. The other dowser was 10 feet away, and the nurse that I work with was right on the money. What was interesting about that case, folks, is that when I did that particular case, the kid was pulled out of the water 20 feet-ish, but he was in the water, so the nurse got in the water. The retired sheriff got 10 feet away, and at that time they were pulling the little victim of drowning out of the water. So it's step by step by step. So at that moment, that's when everything occurred, when the little boy was found. So I just want to let you know, there are a lot of variables when it comes to finding missing people. It's very complicated. Try not to call in and call the cops. If you know somebody, go that route. Because typically if somebody knows you're a dowser and you help find missing people, they'll call you. But typically on a big case, it's a national case, over 2,000 people, psychics call and give non-factual information that doesn't really help much. Yet dowsers help with pinpointing, and they will follow up. I will say two of my favorite states for using dowsers would be like the Texas area, but South Carolina has been using dowsing for years. One of their sheriffs was a big-time dowser, and he found a lot of missing people using the L-rod. And a lot of people were shocked and at the same time scared because it comes across with the woo, feel of, how did he do that? Beyond the word psychic, So a lot of people are sort of scared of dowsing still with crime and victims. True crime is definitely an adventure. So before you jump in there, be careful. Now, Ed, what else are we going to cover? Do you know what else we're going to cover?
Well, let's see what else you'd find interesting. Shari, you got a good one too? Let's get together on that.
Wow, I'm just fascinated listening to all this. I mean, if you have any more stories, go ahead. This is great. I love it.
Sure, okay, the stories would be fantastic for everybody.
Well, the casework is really important as you're a dowser. So let me just tell you what happened to me recently while I was sick because, oh, my God, I was so frustrated. In the last few months, I got a lot of calls on, here's the scary word, a missing pet. And, and I laugh about it because I have 2 animals, and I would be just totally upset if I lost my animals. So I had a missing dog case and 3 missing kitties. And typically, I will tell you, 9 times out of 10, I find the missing animal. I mean, I'm that good on finding missing animals. I love doing it. But now that I found out that my prednisone was screwing up my thyroid, that could be why my perception ability was off. I mean, I could tell all 3. First, I asked, show me if the animal is alive or dead. And so I'm going to tell you a story about the missing kitty in, I think it was Iowa. A family went on a vacation, and they were driving through at a rest stop, and the kitty jumped out. You know how that goes. And so they called me and said, okay, they got back to New England without the kitty. And I said, well, the kitty's still alive, but it keeps hanging around. It's about 3 miles over. She goes, 3 miles? And I said, yeah, but the funny news is the kitty's smelling Kentucky Fried Chicken. And so I said, it's gone to town, and it's getting fed by all these different restaurants, and it's hooking up with another cat. Now, here's a way to find a missing kitty. You say, show me what's around the missing kitty. So if it's around a white kitty and it's a black cat, you look for the white kitty, and sometimes you'll find the black cat. That sounds really super goofy, but let's say you have an orange kitty, and I said it's with the white cat. You're going to be able to see the white cat easier because it's not camouflaged, and it hasn't happened yet. But the good news is, for some reason, I saw the kitty going all over town. I mean, literally 2 more miles over, and it turns out, I said, someone is feeding the kitties, and it's like a house, but it's not a house. Well, it turns out that there was a church that fed all the local kitties that were randomly left out in the street, whatever, and they fed them and housed them. And so they would run back and forth from the Wendy's, the Kentucky Fried Chicken, and all the way back to the church, and they had food, and they were happy, and they had housing. And so it was really hard for her because every time the client called, she finally flew back to town where the kitty went missing, and people did see her cat because it had specific characteristics. I said, watch for the white kitty, they'll see the black kitty. And darned if it didn't happen. And she goes, every time I called him, he didn't come to me. And I said, well, the kitty's mad at you that you left him, so the kitty is still hiding. So unfortunately, you're just going to have to wait and try to get the church people to grab your kitty and try to call you, take a picture, and get your cat back. Hasn't happened yet. We are in a process of still working on it. I have another kitty case where the kitty is still out roaming. So if the kitty is on movement, when you douse, you can say, is the kitty, I call it a point of entry. So is the kitty at this house on, let's say, call it Gray Street, 221 Gray Street. Is the kitty on Gray Street? No. And then I would say, is it on the next street, which is Frank Street? No. Is it on FGH Holly Street? And it says yes. If they're moving and then goes back to Gray Street, you know the kitty is alive. So I tell people, don't always, these animals, they really know how to survive, even in this terrible weather. But a lot of times they'll hang under the dryer section of the house or in a town where they have hotels, for example, where they have an ongoing vent that heats up an area. So I tell a lot of people it's really important that when kitties are the hardest to find. So let's say recently I got a case where it was a missing dog, and it was really funny because the people hired, I was one of the first psychics they hired, or dowsers they hired. They'd heard about dowsing, and they called me after the dog was eventually found. And here's what was interesting is they did a spreadsheet on who had the highest accuracy rate, who charged the most, and so forth, which was, to me, it was awkward. And, you know, sometimes you want to know and sometimes you don't want to know. But I had said the dog had been picked up by a guy who had funny nails. When the owner went to go meet the guy, he didn't really pay attention to his nails. I said it had something to do with a trailer. I said the trailer's moving and so forth. I see poverty. And I said, but the dog went from that guy to another guy to a woman, and I would say almost a wife or girlfriend or whatever. And I want to bring this up because I think it's really important that if something is in your mind and you say it, put it down in parentheses. So, for example, when I was talking about the case, I said, oh, it reminds me of the time my sister's dog went missing, and a Hispanic family took my sister's dog. Now, I'm not picking on Hispanic or anything like that. I'm just saying in that instance, it was a Hispanic family. Now, on the missing dog case I just did recently, it was a Hispanic female. So put it down in parentheses. It reminds you of, and you put that in parentheses, and that could be the answer to the solution to the problem. And so the dog was with the Hispanic female, and the poor brother who had the trailer called the man who lost the dog because he put up a huge reward. It was a service dog for depression. And they wrote all this up, and they figured it all out, and thank God I was on the top of accuracy. But I said, yes, it's still in Albuquerque. Yes, it's running around doing different things. But translation is everything. So I want to let you know, I thought the dog was at the groomer, but I didn't douse that. So that's really important. The dog supposedly went to the vet to get checked to see if anybody was missing an animal. But my client had given all the vets posters on their missing animal. And they said, no, they said there wasn't a missing animal. But I know for a fact my client had given out posters. Let's see here. So my client finally went back and got the dog, and it was 15 minutes. It was in Albuquerque, and 15 minutes from where the dog had run off. So I do want to tell people that you have to figure out, when you locate missing animals, is figure out not just the street, figure out the radius. And I do that with treasure, and I do that with some other locating missing objects. So it's really important that when you locate missing objects or even animals, figure out a radius. So let's say I said, oh, okay, it's within 15 minutes or within 12 miles. And then you can also use the azimuth method, which is put your compass on 0 and try to figure out the 360 of where the animal is. So, for example, if the animal is on a street and left at that point, the point of entry, the point of origin, then you say, show me where the animal is located and living now, or show me where the animal is living in the final spot. And that's very, very important to locate the animal. And then you can also ask, is the animal going to be given up or called for the reward? And then on that one I said, yeah, it felt like the reward was going to happen. And it finally did happen. On some animals, I've had animals where they run off and they don't want to come home because they do have claws, and they were out in the suburb area and they loved it and they didn't want to come home. I had I guess he was a diplomat, and he lost his cat, and I said, I'm sorry, but your kitty loves the woods and it's not coming home. I just don't see it. I see it getting free food from everybody, and it's having a ball. It's not for you personally. It's just enjoying life outside. So I want to tell people on missing animals, that's a toughie. But again, with missing animals, always do the radius. On that particular one, you can also label each subdivision and then try to go in with like how many streets in, how many houses in. On that particular one, it was rough for me because I was sick. So I tell people, again, when you're sick, tell your clients right up front, hey, I'm sick right now. I'm going to hope for the best accuracy rate. I had no idea my medicine affected my thyroid, which affects your thinking, which affects your dowsing. So we talked about a little about animals. Frequently when I lecture, I'll just say this real quick, I'm going to move on to missing objects. Ed, did you guys understand everything I was saying? So you
yes, yes, we did.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure before I move on to missing objects. So I'm going to throw in, let me take a quick sip of some Gatorade here. Hold on one second. Everybody get your tea or coffee. Alrighty. I have been known to find missing objects. I'm really good at finding missing objects, and my accuracy rate is pretty much off the charts, which is, thank God for that. I'll just mention the Smithsonian Magazine. Writer Jack Hope came out to the American Dowsing Society in 1996. Yeah, that shows my age. And he interviewed a bunch of people for the article on dowsing. It's called New Agers Do Something with Dowsing. I can't remember what, but it was January 96 in the Smithsonian Magazine, an article Jack wrote about the dowsers and how unique all their capabilities are and all the different subject matters they work on and so forth. On the Smithsonian Magazine article regarding myself, Jack actually came to me and said a lot of people thought I was a fraud. They thought my dad did all my dowsing work. And I just thought that was so funny because dowsers actually rely on themselves. Even though I recommend teamwork, if I'm not right, but if I'm close, I'll say, oh, no, Rachel did it, or so-and-so did it. By all means, I'll give somebody credit. At any rate, he came to me and said, well, they think you're a fraud here. And I said, oh, righty, whatever. And he goes, I'll tell you what, if you pass these tests, I'll go ahead and write an article and give you half a page or a page on your work. And I said, okay, well, be ready to be writing because I'm a dowser and I'm good at it, and I can find your missing objects. I said, what you got? And he finally had me try to locate a file folder for him. And on missing objects, like somebody called tonight about a missing license. So I'm going to give you two scenarios. All right, so a girl called tonight about a missing license, and I saw in my head red boots. I saw the color red. So you write that down and you put that in parentheses, and I had her send me a picture of the four sides of her room, her bedroom, okay, because she's in college. And one side, I didn't see anything red that hit me. The next side, I saw for example, a red notebook. I said, go there. And I said, toss everything around. I said, I think the license is something to do with the red. She called back and she goes, okay, it wasn't red boots, it was the red notebook. And so what happened was her license was right next to the red notebook. So I tell people all the time when it comes to missing objects, the question is, what is next to the missing object? That's goofy. I know it's goofy. But for example, on Jack Hope, when I had to find 2 missing objects for him, he was a totally different equation, and I do call it the equation. What happened with him was I said, I'm seeing your car. So if you see something other than the house and you're told to go to his car, it could be the object is either A, in his car, or it's a second missing object. So I told Jack, go to the trunk of your car, and I was dowsing it, and I said, I saw this and I saw that, and I said, uncover all this, and the paperwork you're looking for, another piece of paper you're looking for, is right in the trunk of your car. You've got to pull that out. I mean, I feel very compelled. Now, I gave the word compelled to you because it's really, really important that you pay attention to the feeling, the gravitational pull on your dowsing. When he looked, he screamed, in a good way, and he said, oh, my God. And I said, what is it? And he goes, this is not what I was looking for, but I had to have this legal paperwork because in a week I have a lawsuit. If I didn't show the numbers and the lawsuit paperwork, I was going to lose my lawsuit. And so sometimes you'll be led to 2 different objects missing, and you are not aware of it. You're being taken on a different path. And again, I tell people, pay attention to all these little details, and you'd be surprised how accurate you can be. So the second thing I had to do for Jack was find his original paperwork. And so I said, Jack, honestly, I feel like I'm next to a window. And that's one thing you can do. You douse out, am I in the kitchen? No. And you say, am I? Or, show me. Am I in the office? Yes. And then you have to watch out because some people have more than one office. And I said, Jack, I'm in your office. He goes, no, I've checked in it. I said, let's just humor me. Let's go back to the office. So he went to the office, and I said, is there a big window in the office? And I feel a desk. And what I do, I'm just giving a short version, but I doused out desk, file cabinet, and all these details. I did not have a picture of what was in that room. So I'm doing it on what I call a raw format. And I said, go to the desk next to the window. He goes, okay. I said, sit there. And I said, show me if I am on the left side of the desk. No. Show me if I'm on the right side of the desk. Yes. So I said, it's on the right side of the desk. And he goes, Ginette, I've already been there. It's not there. I said, okay, let's keep going. So I doused out, is it in drawer 1 near the top of the desk? No. Is it in drawer 2? And it said, yes. I said, open drawer 2. And he was really frustrated. He goes, Ginette, I've already looked here. I said, open up the drawer. So this is what I did. I said, show me what's next to the file folder. I said, so this is, you have to ask all these silly questions. So I said, show me if it's next to a blue file folder. No. Show me if it's next to a green file folder. No. Show me if it's next to a red file folder. It said yes. And once I got the yes, I said, okay, what I want you to do is, are there any red file folders in that drawer? And he said yes. And I said, okay, put your finger on it, pull it sideways so that that's your little landmark. They're creating a landmark. I want you to go 2 back and 2 front. Because I actually said, show me, should I go 2 in front or 4 in front? And I got 2. So I said, go 2 in front, and your legal paperwork's right there. And he found it. And that was from Fairfax, Virginia, all the way to New York City, New York. Now, how did I do it? I said, show me. And so I used the dowsing, and I broke it down piece by piece by piece. I know it sounds boring, but it does work. It's a protocol that is amazing. And he screamed again and said, I can't believe you found this. I've been through that drawer 100 times. And he goes, you're not going to believe the story. Here's the story. At Christmas, he had put his writing work right next to the Santa Claus folder. And originally we had a fight. He and I had a fight over Santa Claus. I said, it has to do with Santa Claus. No. And so pay attention to these little details, because if you get Santa in your head, write down the word Santa, put it in parentheses, there's a connection. There is a link. There is a trigger. And I said, and Santa Claus in the red file folder had to do with Christmas. And then he found his file folder two in front, and he said it was about wolves or something. And he said, I can't he goes, you just saved my tush, because he had to deliver this paper, the article for the Smithsonian magazine, and boom, he finally got it. Hence, he wrote a half a paper on me in the Smithsonian magazine, and I am the only accurate forensic psychic dowser in the Smithsonian magazine that's ever found anything. So good news can come. If you keep working at it, you'd be surprised. You'll still get credibility for your work. Do you have any questions from your listeners? Because, it's been an hour, and I want to know if anybody has any questions that might interest them about dowsing, that might help them become a better dowser. Or I'm very pro going to the conventions. I wish I could go this year, but if I'd gone, I'd go to California for fun,
Yeah, that'd be great. If you could come to California, that'd be great. West Coast Conference, you coming?
I don't know that I'm coming this year. I think next year is probably going to be probable. I have a kid graduating college and another one in college, and I'm a helicopter mom, and and I
and a helicopter dowser.
I'm really bad about it, but the first one is on track. The second one is moving forward. I just feel like I'm going to have a lot more freedom when they're on their own. But I'm hoping next year. But I do want to tell people that the California conference, when I went there, of course I met Ed there, and he was very full of information. I think it has a lot more fun stuff. The regular convention is great. It has a lot of basics and earthy stuff like cooking or what do you call it? I don't want to say healing, but health issues. Methodologies, but California has a plethora of topics they cover, which is really super, and that would be more of my cup of tea. Just my, from my advanced skill level. I tell people go, because it's fun, and you meet a lot of great people, and I think out of all the times I've ever gone to all the conventions, I think I've met 2 weirdos, and that's it. That's pretty darn good. So.
Yeah, so, Jeannie, I was looking at your write-up, and I was curious about your ghost dowsing.
The ghost dowsing itself?
Yeah. Like, what do you do? How do you do that?
Okay, so ghost dowsing is a little different of a technique. All right, so, a lot of people don't know it, but there's lots of different ghosts. So you've got the Hat Man, the Shadow Men, you've got the spirits, you've got, when I died a third time on the operating table, I had a bunch of angels pushing me back in my body. Thank God for that. And so you have a multitude of different ghosts. So you could have a poltergeist, etc. So what I do is I take the floor plan of a house, and I take the plat of a house, and I douse out the property, but I put on my question list, and I write everything down, and I touch it with the tips of my fingers. And I say, show me what kind of ghost is at this location. So let's say it's 222 Berry Street. So I write down where is it? 222 Berry Street. Who? So I write down the name of the client. Let's see, when, if the ghost has only been there a little while, I'll write down a time frame. What we're going to learn. So we write down all those things. Like we want to find out what kind of ghost. So we have the property. So let's say it's 10 acres, and I say, show me where the ghost is haunting the property. And a lot of times ghosts will be, I hate to say this, but sometimes they're more around the water aspect of the house or the property with a water well or with a creek bed. Now, why is that? Because water creates friction, creates energy, and helps this ghost come. And, stay there, And I haven't ever played with moving out a ghost because you really need to get owner's, permission. But so what I do, so let's say you have the property plat. I use the dowser's grid pattern. The grid pattern is A, B, C, D, E across, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc. down. And you guys know what the grid pattern is, right, Ed?
Yes.
Okay, so I personally, what I would do is do the grid pattern on the property first and see if any of these items are affecting the property. And then I would go, when I say property, the actual earthbound property, like, 1 acre, 2 acres, etc. And then I would take the foundation of the house and I'd break it up by level 1, 2, 3, 4, and even the basement or the crawl space, and see if that's being affected by the ghost. And, for example, if you've got a leak in the house, sometimes the ghost is coming in through the leak. I'll tell you a silly story. We have a guy that got murdered near my house. I mean, literally 5 minutes from my house. And he haunts the area. It doesn't haunt my house. But he comes here periodically. When he comes, you can hear him walking across the kitchen floor, and he sounds like he has spurs on his boots. But in reality, he had, I guess, biker boots on at the time he got murdered. And he comes here, and he guards my house because I have 2 daughters. And it's really weird because when the girls are here, the girls hear him crossing the kitchen floor. And it's really funny because when the cheerleaders came here and they heard it, they thought we were joking. And then they heard it, and they were like, oh, okay, all the kids were going to stay in their bedrooms. They weren't going to go through the kitchen and get out of the house at 3 a.m. and go play. They were just too afraid, so they stayed here. So he was sort of a protector, but so on him, he was more, for some reason, he was a ghosty affecting the kitchen more than anything. So I would jowse out, show me which room of the house he is influencing, and I typically got the kitchen. For example, I would take pictures of him out in the yard, and I would say, show me yourself next to my daughter. If you're a good guy, show me, show me, show me. And we finally got him on a photo, and it was a bright light next to my daughter, who at the time was about 7. And I swear to God, we did not know this guy was that tall, but he was like 6'2", 6'4". And so when the bright light showed up, it showed taller than my daughter. She was sitting on the top of a slide, and he was just standing there. So even though he's a ghosty and pretty much a poltergeist, he was a good poltergeist. So I didn't have a problem with him. We have another ghost in the area. He was murdered, so he just comes and goes all over the area. He knocks on doors. He plays with people. So, I mean, he's a harmless ghost. We have another one where there's a little girl running around the neighborhood, but for some reason she leaves the kitchen and goes down the hall. I don't know what that's about. She has not been here much, but people have seen her. So in other words, I say, show me which room, and I use a pen in my left hand and my pendulum in my right hand, and I touch each room and say, show me which room. And if you want, you can say, show me which corner of the room the ghost is going to be in the most. And then you ask the ghost to show up and say, show me yourself so I can show other people that you're here. And I take photos of them, and I get them on film. I mean, I did a George Washington's granddaughter's house, and I actually asked the ghost to show up, and it came on a Polaroid. You have to ask it properly, respectfully. I've noticed that's been a little bit more positive in the energy. It's just show me. And I love that terminology, and it works very well. What in particular, Sherry, what was it you're looking for in the way of a ghost? Do you have a case that you're working on?
I don't have one I'm working on right at the moment, because when they come up, I take care of them right away. But I did have one that I did over my cell phone, and right after I got done, there was it looked like smoke coming out of my phone, and I thought my phone was on fire, but it turned out it was the image of a lady, and it was the one that I had just released. So it's amazing what can come up. And since I had the cell phone in my hand and it wasn't warm, I knew it wasn't on fire. I took a picture of the image, so I have a photo of that I captured of her. So interesting things come up when you do ghost dowsing.
It is really funny. I mean, you have to laugh at it. You're like, oh my God, surprise, surprise, surprise with dowsing. I mean, it really is wonderful. So what else can I cover for you guys while we're on the line? I mean, I do want everybody to pull up synesthesia and see if you have those characteristics. Because let me see if I can get you SYN. I'm not spelling it right, am I?
So also, you want to give out your information or any information that you want to give out to everybody who's on the call.
Sure, that's fine. If you need me, don't call tonight, please. It's already 9 o'clock tonight. So if you need me, call area code 571-358-1444. Again, it's 571-358-1444. And typically I'll talk to everybody, but, if you need an appointment, I do charge for my time. So, if it's a freebie, I'll just say, hey, listen, you're in the category of a freebie, or, that's a gig I get paid for. So I tell people honestly. So I do want to tell people my website is Reach Ginette, REACH, Ginette, GINETTE.com, REACHGINETTE.com. And a lot of people don't know, but I am selling some of Lewis's items. I have way too much stuff, and I'm down to a few books, but I'm selling quite a few pendulums that are left, and I'm selling some of his personal items. He is still alive. He does have really bad dementia, and he is a terrible patient. And I take that money and we take him ice cream, bananas. What else did we take him? We take him something else, but he has not changed in looks. He still looks the same. His demeanor is, if he was talking to you guys, he'd be real nice. When he talks to me, he hates where he is, but he's in a very nice nursing home, and he's safe, so it's all good.
Great. So, maybe now we can open it up to questions if anyone has a question. I'm not going to unmute everybody, but if you do have an important question for Ginny, please dial *6 and to unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question.
Yep.
So that's *6.
Yep. And we may not have any questions.
Yeah, you've definitely covered a lot, and I know that we went through all this, a lot of stuff tonight. Just remember, it is on it will be on the website at dowsers.org, so you'll be able to go ahead and listen to the recording in case you want to review it and get all the details. Okay, does anyone have a question?
Yeah, I'm going to get off scot-free.
Okay, so we have another Ginette on the call. Ginette, do you have a question? I know she's unmuted, so.
I can't hear her.
I wonder if they're having trouble.
I have a question. I came in late. I'm sorry. Do you have any sort of protection protocol that you use before your ghost hunting?
What's your first name?
Lori.
Okay, Lori.
Lori, what I like? Ever since I was a kid, I don't even remember whose it was. I envision myself, you can sit in I guess you call it the lotus position, or you can just sit down. I don't like to cross my feet typically, but I like to pretend there's a bubble around me, and I put this bubble around me, and I envision it to be 1 foot, 5 foot, 10 feet, 16 feet, 100 feet, and then no negativity can attack me, or no entity can attack me through it. If you're a believer in Jesus Christ, You can say, or Muhammad, I don't care which. You can say, have Muhammad or Jesus Christ protect me, in a form of I just use any word that's positive, and I say to destroy any negativity, almost as if he's a warrior to protect you. And I just say, so in other words, this bubble, do you know how they have the SpongeBob TV show, and the squirrel is in a bubble, and she's in this like a little airy room, and I envision that, and I say, show me, show me, show me, and put all this positive energy around myself and increase my bubble, again, 5 feet, 10 feet, and I expand it, and I say it's thick of godly air. I don't normally say Jesus or Muhammad, but I'm saying you can use whoever you want to use. You can say angels. You can say whoever. I try to go straight to the source. I call it the universe or God, and I say to protect me, and that typically helps really well. I've never been scratched on a ghost hunt, and I have seen some wild stuff, so no complaints. But I also don't work on negative entities. I mean, I've been asked to work on some weird stuff, but I tend to send those cases away to somebody else who likes that kind of work, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh, interesting. Thank you.
Yep. I hope that helps.
Mm-hmm. Yes, okay. It does. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions, anybody? Oh, good.
Okay. Ginette, you really gave us an excellent version of many, many things that you do, and I appreciate that very much. I want to thank you for being here and giving us such a wonderful evening tonight. Thank you, thank you.
I had a question. I got in kind of late. I had a question.
Okay, go ahead, honey.
On the Dowser's grid pattern, could you use that when you're looking for an object or for treasure also?
All of the above, yeah.
Okay, for all of them.
I like to use several patterns when treasure hunting because treasure hunting has such negativity with it at times. A lot of times, unfortunately, people were killed and left there to protect the treasure. Missing objects, it could be a family member stole from you, and there's negativity with that. That sounds sort of goofy, but I find that that's really important. I mean, your relatives will actually lie to your face. No, I didn't touch it. No, I didn't take it. And they were the ones who stole it. So, you know, again, of course it's complicated, but give it a try. I just tell people, just remember dowsing is not always as straightforward as you think it is. Of course, you have the easy stuff, you know, is it a boy or a girl? All right, anyway, any other questions?
Okay. Thanks.
Ed?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right, we'll call it a night then. Okay.
Anybody else have a question? Go ahead and ask your question now if you have one.
I think we're good.
Wow, you covered so much. See, and you went into such detail, which was fantastic. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, no problem. Yep. Any way I can help, if you need me again, let me know. All right.
Okay.
Well, that's nice. All right. Bye, folks.
Well, thank you so much for going over so many things. I really appreciate it, and I know that everybody who was on the call does, and I'm sure everyone who listens to the recording will appreciate everything you've talked about and all the detail you went into. So we really appreciate it. Thank you so much. And remember that next month we have another conference call, the third Monday, and I didn't look that up as to what the date actually is, and I don't see my calendar in here. I think it's in the other room. But at any rate, third Monday of next month, we will be having another Dowser's conference call, and the main focus is water dowsing, but we do do other things as long as the person we're interviewing has other things that they dowse for, and I think that makes it even more interesting. So thank you very much. Ed, did you have anything else to say?
Well, our next one is going to be the 16th of March. That's the third Monday in March. So I hope everyone will come back with us, and we'll have another one of these wonderful things for everybody to learn more about.
Okay, so thank you very much. Thank you, Ed Stillman and Ginette Lucas. And thank everyone who participated in the call. Good evening, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Take care now.